We're a public sector dedicated advertising agency. We've run over 600 plus recruitment campaigns, and we help public sector recruiters with user experience, with online targeting, and basically reducing the cost per quality application, whilst also delivering sufficient volume of applications for whatever roles you're recruiting for. Sector. Now, today we're just going to zoom in on some of the awareness challenges, perception, and user experience. We want to challenge you. Are your awareness activities where jobs and opportunities being posted in places where people can definitely access them? Do the people that are thinking of or considering working for you have a narrow perception of your organisation, of the career pathways you offer? And is the user experience that you're putting in front of them inaccessible? Will it drive frustration? Will it actually hurt your employer brand? These are things that many people are up against. There is a tendency to use channels such as jobs boards, platforms like LinkedIn and so on. They may not be being accessed at the time that your job is posted by the people you want to see the job. So using inclusive channels, for example, this is the site Ghana Web, which we were able to place a recruitment campaign on in a certain geography where the client wanted to increase representation from the Ghanaian community in their organization. So working out where people might be and then placing recruitment advertising there can be very powerful. It can also be very low cost versus traditional recruitment channels. So taking these approaches doesn't only achieve an inclusivity objective, but it also reduces cost. The central clip is a video created by someone, a young person who worked in the public sector, was then distributed on Snapchat, which is by far one of the most popular platforms and where young people actually are. And she's talking about her career pathway in a Scottish council. And that was used to drive sign-ups for young people to receive emails about apprenticeship opportunities. And then on the UX front, this is a social care recruitment microsite landing page, which has been translated into Urdu automatically by a large language model. So thinking about targeting certain communities, if English isn't their first language, and then using machine learning and large language models to improve user experience and to simplify it, we think is something that we're going to see a lot more of in the coming months and years. The moving away from national and recruitment focused channels towards national news titles means that we're often targeting people from, or reaching people from lower income backgrounds and targeting them where they are online. Then bringing them to a very simple light touch form, as you can see in this Dorset social care campaign, to collect just one or two bits of information that enable the organisation then to place multiple jobs in front of them. And you may be aware of regional public sector job sites, West Midlands Jobs, My Job Scotland, and there are many, using these sites as pools of people who are interested in careers in the public sector to then remarket to those sites, remarket to users that have been to those sites to place multiple potential jobs in front of people has proven to be incredibly effective. So rather than advertising to much larger audiences, advertising to people who are already interested in career pathways in the public sector. So we're now going to look a little bit at tactics, things that we can see emerging very, very quickly as being inclusive and delivering a strong return on investment. Search advertising we often position as a window into people's minds. People are very likely to go to a search with whatever they're thinking about. It almost is an extension of people's thought process. And what it enables us to do is to look into, in specific areas, what sort of jobs, what kinds of jobs are people looking for? And then wonderfully place a relevant advert next to those search results. But it helps us understand, for example, in certain areas, what proportion of people are searching for part-time jobs. And in adult social care, this is helping influence the sorts of roles that are put out there. So you're able to preempt demand and position your roles in front of people based on what your local population is actually looking for. This is also very powerful for identifying specific audiences and seeing what they're looking for, and then being able to place opportunities in front of them. So people from certain communities, people from certain backgrounds, for example, they may have convictions, long-term mental health problems, long-term physical health problems. Using search to find people who are interacting with content related to those things and positioning public sector jobs is a very powerful tactic. We're also seeing a dramatic increase in the use of owned channels. Councils are often the biggest the biggest media owner in their area, but they rarely make full use of their email channels, for example, which go to many tens of thousands of people. Also, the use of local jobs boards to advertise jobs, but also then to remarket to audiences, as I've mentioned earlier, is an incredibly low-cost way of targeting people who are already in market. So millions of impressions, curated audiences mean that you can shift spend from relatively expensive, low-performance platforms, national jobs platforms, trade titles, and so on, and start to invest it in your own channels, which creates not only lower cost per quality application, but the ability then to invest more in reaching more people more frequently, which also improves employer brand and improves cost per application. So some examples of this would be, for example, in locations where people are trying to attract older audiences back to professions or back into the workforce, using a mixture of national and local newspapers, remarketing to adult social care content on council websites, and maybe putting ads around people looking for part-time jobs or volunteering opportunities. These are tactics which we can see replacing maybe posting on LinkedIn, posting on Indeed, and so on. Or if you have maybe an apprenticeship scheme, using Snapchat in a similar way that was used in Scotland to deliver messaging and examples of career paths, and then encouraging young people to come and sign up to receive future posts in the future. Also, remarketing from school term dates pages will mean that you get parents and also young people, so triggering conversations on that front. So just to sort of sum this up a little bit, the trend we see with the constraints on the public sector and the types of roles and skills we need to address will be moving away from broadcast, non-measurable, probably quite expensive channels, less poster placement, less out of home, towards much more targeted channels like search, online display, and so on. Increased use of owned channels to deliver free awareness, and obviously a much more increased focus on not just digital placement, but digital user experiences that are improved on that front. In terms of the actual user experience itself, rather than taking people from clicking on an ad about a specific role to the full application, we might start to see people using much lighter touch user experiences that talk about career pathways more generally and give people choice around an array of different roles and nudge people towards those roles over time. you'll see less use, we think, of the slightly constrained .gov or solution provider owned sites towards small, simple sites featuring video and light data collection that work brilliantly on mobile, focusing much more on simple information that's really accessible